So today we're going to be talking about the 7 deadly sins the average investor makes. And this is honestly, guys, what separates successful investors from unsuccessful investors out there. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of the best videos I have ever done, just based on the research that has gone into it and all of the viewpoints I'm tying together here. So hopefully I'm right about that, and I'm not just being overconfident, which is actually one of these 7 deadly sins that we'll get to later. But you guys got to make sure you let me know in the comments below what you think of this video. So before we get into the 7 deadly sins, let's acknowledge why I'm holding a copy of The Intelligent Investor. That is because that is basically where this first quote is here. That's where this is from. Now, this isn't the exact quote. I'm basically paraphrasing this, but I just wanted to bring this in here because if you're looking to learn more about investing, the #1 book I recommend is The Intelligent Investor. The link's in the description. The #2 book I recommend, which is the source for all of this information here, is Unshakable by Tony Robbins. I just finished listening to that book in the format of an audiobook. I highly recommend that book, and that's basically where I'm getting these from. It was from a certain chapter I listened to. The information was so valuable. I went through, took my own notes on it, and figured I'd bring my own perspective to the table as far as what they mentioned in that audiobook. But anyways, that's why I'm holding this book, and I highly recommend picking up Unshakable as well by Tony Robbins. My quote on the board here says, "Since we cannot predict the behavior of the markets, we must predict and control our own behavior." Okay? So this is very simple. This basically explains the root of the 7 deadly investing sins. This is a lack of control of your own behavior. The best way I could explain this, and maybe this seems kind of silly because I have drawings here of men and women on the board, and I'm not necessarily saying that pink is women and the blue is men, because I'm not trying to make this anything about sexes here, okay? But basically the best way I could describe this was looking at a relationship, all right? So we've all been in a relationship before, or I'm sure most of us have, where you're two people who argue all the time. If you're both people who clash, that relationship doesn't last very long, okay? Because you both have uncontrolled behavior. A successful relationship involves one person who's very stable and one person who may be acting erratically. And it's not always the same person. I'm not saying that the woman's always, the emotional one. There's times when men are emotional as well. But what I'm saying is what you need to do is you need to have one person in that relationship with controlled behavior and controlled emotions at that point in time, while the other person may have erratic behavior or be emotional. This is how you need to be investing, okay? The stock market is this partner in the relationship with the erratic behavior, the partner who is emotional. You need to have controlled behavior and controlled emotions to have a successful relationship, okay? The problem is most people go at it like scenario B here, which is the bad relationship. This is where you both have uncontrolled emotions, you both have uncontrolled behavior. So if you can't control your own emotions and your own behavior, and the stock market has uncontrolled behavior, you're not going to have a good time as an investor. And basically, guys, these 7 deadly investing sins all come from scenario B here that most people put themselves in, where they have uncontrolled behavior and they don't control their emotions, and they're working in an uncontrolled environment. That is a very bad combination. That is exactly like being in a relationship where both people are out of control. That ends in a very bad way in most cases. You don't see people in this scenario staying together very long. So this is basically the psychology involved with the 7 deadly investing sins, just so you guys know where we're coming from. Because the market is unpredictable, because the behavior is unpredictable of the market, you need to be the stability. You need to be the one in the relationship with the controlled behavior and the controlled emotions. Okay, so the first deadly investing sin is confirmation bias. This is probably one of the most important ones that we're going to talk about today, and it's very similar to the second one known as the endowment effect. So I'm kind of tying these two together because the solution to these is largely the same. But confirmation bias is basically seeking confirmation of your own beliefs. This is somebody who is not interested or actually shies away from the opinions of other people because they just want to hear that they're correct in their decisions, okay? This is something that you see a lot now because it's very easy to create your own echo chamber. This is basically where you're going to hear exactly what it is you want to hear because you're being selective about your media consumption. It's very easy to do this now because there's a lot of biased news sources out there. So if you're somebody who, let's say, for example, you're investing in Bitcoin, and I'm not saying whether or not that, I think that's a good investment or a bad investment. It doesn't matter. If you're somebody who only reads articles about why it's good to invest in Bitcoin, and anybody who starts to question you, you become defensive and you argue with them and you say, no, 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 I'm right about this. And as a result, you get frustrated, so you only consume media that supports your decision. This is what's called confirmation bias. This is an echo chamber at that point. You're only listening to what it is that you want to hear. Basically, you're rejecting the opinions of other people. So all this biased news out there is creating an echo chamber. And maybe back before, there was such diversification with media, if you opened up a paper, it was less biased. I think that as time has gone on now, news has become more and more biased. So you can really be very selective about your media consumption. And people will just listen to or just watch or just read exactly what it is that they want to hear. That means they're not getting all of the facts. Basically, you overvalue information that validates your decision, and you undervalue information that contradicts your decision, when really you should look at both of these two things equally. Because at the end of the day, we like being right. We want to be right about our decisions. And when somebody questions you and says you might be wrong, you're going to get defensive and you're going to take offense to that. But as an investor, that's a very dangerous strategy. Number 2 is the endowment effect, very similar to confirmation bias. Basically, this is believing that what you already hold has greater value. Basically, you're out of touch with the objective value of what it is that you're holding. Now, just so you guys, just to refresh our minds here, this helped me too, let's remember what objective means while we're talking about, having a bias towards something. If you're objective, it means that you're not influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering and representing the facts. So if you're looking for the objective value of something, this is basically the value of it without anybody's personal feelings involved or the opinions, anybody's personal opinion. You're just strictly looking at the facts. So you want to make sure that when you are investing in something or holding an investment, you're looking at the objective value and you're not thinking about, oh, I already own this. I like the fact that I have it. And because I already have this, it's more valuable to me. You have an emotional attachment to that. You don't want to have that happen. Because basically at that point you've fallen in love with that investment and you don't want to part ways. You should always be willing to part ways with your investment if it's time to part ways. You shouldn't fall in love with it. So basically, here's the solution to these two things. If you're somebody who has confirmation bias or you're somebody who really just loves what you already have, this is the solution. Number 1, you need to find qualified people who disagree with you, okay? So you want to find objective opinions, okay? So you don't want to find opinions that are skewed by people's personal feelings or opinions. Find qualified opinions, okay? Number 2, remember that all opinions are not created equal. So don't just listen to anyone. So I'm not saying that you should go talk to your mailman about whether or not you should buy Bitcoin. Maybe your mailman, that's all he does off hours is invest in Bitcoin. I have no idea. If he is qualified, sure, ask his opinion. But if someone has no qualifications, why would their opinion have any value? Make sure you're seeking out qualified opinions that either confirm or contradict what it is that you think no matter what, and that you're weighing each opinion of equal value. And you basically are not skewing your information or having stronger beliefs in one thing over the other. And then basically the third thing I'd recommend, constantly asking yourself these questions. What don't I know? So what are you missing there? And also ask, what am I not seeing? Be open to the fact that you don't know everything and understand that most people don't know everything, and continue to seek qualified opinions from other people. The third deadly investing sin is the belief that the current trend will continue. Basically, this is mistaking recent events for ongoing trends. And as a result, we typically buy the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. So this is the belief that, oh, we're having a good time. The good times are going to keep on rolling. Or if you're having a bad time, the bad times are never going to end. This basically causes you to do the exact opposite of what you should be doing. If you go out there and ask anyone for investing advice, most people are going to look at you and tell you to buy low and sell high. Usually you think they're just being an asshole giving you very, very simple advice. But the truth is, that is the best advice anyone could ever give you. Because if you fall into this belief that the current trend will continue, you're going to buy high and then you're going to sell low. You're going to buy high because the good times are going to keep on rolling in your mind because you think things can only go up from here. So you're going to buy up because things should hopefully continue to go up. Now, if you also believe that the bad times are going to stay bad, then you're going to sell before you lose any more money to protect from losing more money. That's the exact opposite of what you want to do. So this actually causes you to go basically with the trend and with the herd when you want to be going against the prevailing trend. So you shouldn't believe that the current trend will continue. This is not the case at all. You should actually be going against the current trend, because as a result, this literally causes people to buy things at the exact wrong time. You buy things at the top of the market. You're celebrating. Your friends are making money investing in this certain sector or this certain stock. Then everyone gets in and you're like, oh, of course it's going to go up. It's already gone up in the past. Because it went up in the past, it has to go up in the future. That is just not true. Basically, this comes from the fact that we project out into the future what we have most recently been seeing. It's something our brains are wired to do. Basically, recent experiences carry more weight in our minds, and there's actually a name for this called the recency bias. So if you guys don't believe me, look that up, okay? So once you understand that we're prone to this recency bias, you need to realize that you need to kind of go against the prevailing trend and do what feels wrong. So when everyone is celebrating and having a good time, that's probably a good time to sell. When everybody thinks that the bad times are never going to end, that's probably the point when you want to buy, okay? Basically, you want to go against what everyone else out there is doing and understand that you're going to be biased based on recent experiences. Basically, when we're in a bull market, people are having a good time and they're under the belief that the good times will continue. And when we're in a bear market, people are having a very bad time and there's overall pessimism and people think the bad times are never going to end. This results in the tendency for us to buy high and sell low, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do. This is basically the truth, guys. Most investors arrive when the party is winding down. You know, you find out about a party, you find out a little bit late. So let's say you're looking to have fun. It's 11 o'clock and all of a sudden you hear about a party. So you get all hyped up, all right? You get all your friends in the car. You show up at the party and it's winding down and everyone's going home. And you're like, but the good times were never going to end. But they do end because the party always ends. So basically, investors who believe the current trend will continue arrive just as that party's winding down. And as a result, they are going to be in for a rough time because the party is largely over. So basically, the way to combat this, or the solution to this belief that the current trend will continue, is understanding that in most cases, today's winners are tomorrow's losers, and today's losers may be tomorrow's winners. So you want to go against the prevailing trend. The number one thing I want you guys to remember is that past results do not guarantee a similar outcome. So just because we're having a good time now doesn't mean we're going to be having a good time tomorrow. This is one of the best things you can remember, is that you want to buy low and sell high. And if you go with the current trend, you're going to be doing the exact opposite of that. You're going to be following the herd, okay? You're going to be involved in that herd mentality, okay? If you do that, you're going to be in for a rough time as an investor. All right, number 4 is overestimating our abilities. Basically, as humans, we are wired to be overconfident. This is why every parent out there has an above average child. This is why everyone thinks they're an above average driver. We're not. We are all probably average drivers and we all probably have average children. But we have this belief because we're overconfident that we're exceptional drivers, or that our children are just exceptional children, better than the rest. Another problem is overestimating the abilities of someone else. So if you believe someone too much, if you are buying too much into what they are saying, and you think that they have abilities beyond that of the average person, you may also be in for a bad time as an investor. Basically, and this is a direct quote right out of Unshakable by Tony Robbins, you guys need to pick up this book. It's seriously going to change everything you know about investing and also give you just a calmness towards the idea of a market correction. This is a direct quote from the book, okay? One person's salesmanship becomes another person's misguided certainty, okay? So when someone is really good at selling you on their idea, they're really good at selling you on this idea that they have abilities superior to the average person, you're going to believe them, and that is misguided certainty. You believe that they're right because you have overconfidence in their abilities or overconfidence in your own abilities. And as a result, you have misguided certainty. And like I said, guys, I know in the beginning I talked about relationships and how men and women, maybe I was picking on the women, by having the pink stick figure representing a woman. It could be a man or a woman. I'm not color biased here, but basically now I'm going to pick on the men because men are prone to overconfidence. So it's funny because most people who watch my channel, most people who invest are men. It's mostly males who are investing in the stock market. So if you're one of the female investors, the minority out there, you have a distinct advantage because we as men are prone to overconfidence, which is going to give us basically the problem of overestimating our own abilities. We think we can predict the future, or even worse, we don't admit that we can't predict the future. You need to understand these two things. Understand that nobody out there, regardless of their abilities, can accurately predict the future every single time. And you need to understand that no matter what, you can't accurately predict the future. All right? Once you understand these two things, you are at an advantage as an investor. What happens when we overestimate our abilities? We have poor diversification. This is investing too much money in one thing, okay? So maybe you are taking too much stake in what somebody is saying. You're overestimating the abilities of someone else, and they tell you that this is the hot stock you need to buy. As a result, you dump $10,000, which is 1/3 of all of your money in one stock. That's poor diversification. If they're not right about that, you're screwed. So as a result, this overconfidence, this overestimating our abilities results in poor diversification. Too much money in one stock, too much money in one sector. The truth is, the average investor should hold index funds because most investors do not beat market returns. If you believe that your abilities are above average, if you have above average trading abilities, then maybe give it a shot. Try trading individual stocks. But most people have average investing skills, and as a result, they should just hold index funds. Another quote that I liked, again, this is out of that Tony Robbins book, if you can't add value, minimize costs. The best way to do that, index funds. So if you can't add value with your own intellectual ability as far as picking stocks, go for the cheapest stock portfolio out there, which largely is index funds in most cases. So that is why overestimating your abilities or overestimating the abilities of some stock market guru is a terrible strategy as far as investing goes, and it is definitely a stock market sin. The fifth deadly investing sin is this quest for home runs. Basically, this is the desire to gamble or the desire to make speculative investments. Now, before I go any further, let's define what speculative investments are. So to do this, I am literally taking my notes from The Intelligent Investor, Chapter 1, titled Investment versus Speculation, just because I want to show you guys how much value is within this book that has been around for so many years, yet all of this information is still relevant today. So an investment is thorough analysis promising safety of principal and adequate return. This is what we call an investment. Now a speculation, that's operations not meeting these requirements. So these are operations that do not have thorough analysis, that do not promise safety of principal, and they certainly do not promise an adequate return. The problem is investment and speculation, the two words are used hand in hand. You don't hear people on Wall Street calling themselves speculators. They call themselves investors. You need to understand when you're making an investment and when you're making a speculation. This is what's called unintelligent speculation, okay? Number one is speculating when you think you are investing. Many people do this. They have no idea. They're making speculative bets instead of making investments. They're not analyzing things. They're not promising the safety of their principal as their core investing rule, and they're not promising themselves an adequate return. Number two is speculating full time when you lack the knowledge and skill, also known as overconfidence, one of our previous deadly investing sins. You can see how this all ties together here. Number three is risking more than you can afford to lose. This is the unintelligent speculator. This is the majority of people out there who are trading. Now, here's the problem. Or maybe it's not a problem. This is the truth. Speculation is fun. When you're right. When you're wrong, it fucking sucks. That's the truth. It hurts when you're wrong because you lose a lot of money. Speculative investments have very large downside. Just a couple examples would be penny stocks, trading on margin, trading options contracts. These are speculative investments. They're speculations. They're not investments. It hurts when you lose because you lose big. All right? So now that we have an understanding of what a speculation is versus an investment, let's go back to talking about the desire to hit home runs and just slam it out of the park. All right? Here's the biggest thing. This is my biggest issue. And I know I'm starting to get a little angry here because this is what I see, especially with the penny stocks. Someone's right once, okay? They get lucky. Are you going to be right again? How long is it going to take until you're right again? What kind of strategy is that? Let's say you're playing baseball and somebody says, what's your strategy? And you go, I swing that bat as hard as I can. 9 times out of 10, I don't hit anything. But the one time that you did hit that ball, it went flying. It went very far, further than most people hit a ball. But 9 times out of 10, you're wrong. Are you going to be making money if you're wrong 9 times out of 10? But 1 time out of 10, you're right. Don't forget, guys, that if you incur a 50% loss, okay, on an investment, you need a 100% return to offset that loss. A 50% return does not get you back to where you were when you started. You would need to double your money if you lost half of your money. This is something a lot of us forget. So if you're set back 50% on your investment, you're going to have to be right big next time to get back to even where you started. So this quest for home runs, the idea of smashing it out of the park by making speculative bets, is hardwired in us, largely because Wall Street encourages it, and secondly, our minds crave the sensation we get when we're right when taking a gamble. That is why we like casinos. That is why you see people sitting in convenience stores doing scratch-offs when they can't afford to pay their child support. It's because we like the idea of winning, of gambling, of returns that we really don't deserve because we did not have thorough analysis of what we're doing. We do not have a safety of principle or an adequate return. We want an inadequate return that's not proportional to our efforts, all right? I know I'm going off on a tangent and getting a little frustrated here, but this is a really big deal, all right? Now that you understand it, though, you are well ahead of most investors, okay? Understand that a speculator is not an investor. If you want to be a speculator, go be a speculator. But if you're here to learn how to invest, don't be a speculator. You're looking to invest. Understand that investing is a marathon, and most people are treating it like a sprint. Largely, this comes from watching what everyone else is doing. If you and your friend are both trading stocks, it's your hobby or whatever, and your friend is having fantastic returns, you're going to feel like he's getting way ahead of you because he's sprinting. Maybe he's not considering the safety of his principal with those investments. Maybe he's not thinking things through with thorough analysis, and as a result, he's right a little bit of the time. He's been right. He's made good speculative bets, but will he be right every time when he's not adequately preparing for that investment? And he's largely speculating. The problem, guys, there is a lot of short-term noise on Wall Street. That is because Wall Street wins when we are active, okay? How do brokers make money? When we trade. When we trade in and out of stocks, all we do is fatten the pockets of Wall Street brokers. They thrive on activity. They want us to be active traders. So as a result, they create a lot of short-term noise to encourage activity, when largely the best thing to do is just hold on to what you have. Gambling is encouraged and they want you to hit the jackpot. That's why I know a lot of you guys, maybe even before you watch this video, maybe you got an ad for a guy driving a Corvette encouraging you to go, invest in penny stocks or something like that. They want you to hit the jackpot and have this idea that, you're going to hit it out of the park. They want you to gamble, when really you should look at investing as a marathon, where you're making safe bets over time that will grow your money. And your number one rule is to protect the safety of your principal. The solution to this is very simple. The solution is patience and not worrying about what anyone else is doing with their money. Oh man, this one got heated. I hope you guys understand why this is so frustrating to me, because I see so many people out there that are speculating when they think that they're investing, and they're calling themselves investor, and it's even worse because there's no difference on Wall Street. They call it the same thing. They call it investing when most people are actually speculating. I'm thinking I'm going to have to go get my blood pressure checked after that last stock market sin. Holy crap, did I get heated over that. But anyways, guys, luckily the last two are more delicate, so I'm not going to be as angry with these two. Number 6, deadly investing sin is the hometown bias. And this one is very simple and it makes sense. Humans have the natural tendency to stay where they are comfortable, to stay where they're safe, to stay in familiar territory. This is very similar to the endowment effect, where you have greater value in what you already hold. So you see greater value in where you live, and if you work for a certain company, you'll see greater value in that exact company. Let me give you guys an example. When I was 18 years old, I worked for JCPenney, and I loved that company, and I was like, you know what? I got some money. Why don't I invest in JCPenney stock? If anyone has seen what has happened to JCPenney stock, you'll understand why the hometown bias could have really screwed me in that situation. Luckily, I went and I talked to my dad and some other people and said, hey, what do you think about this? He said, oh, I would not recommend investing in JCPenney stock. So I didn't do it, and as a result, I did not fall under the hometown bias of seeing greater value in basically what is familiar. So because I worked there, I thought they were the best retailer out there, and I'm like, they can't fail. But the stock has just been obliterated since then. So I'm very glad I did not fall under the hometown bias and do that. But a lot of people make this mistake because they have the natural tendency to stay where it is comfortable, and they also believe that what they hold or what's around them, so basically when you work for a certain company, you believe that because you work there, this company is so much better than other companies. It's this endowment effect. They tie in together, okay? Here's 3 examples of hometown bias. Number 1, very common, investing only in the market of your own country. So most investors in the United States are largely invested solely in U.S. stocks. Another example of this is investing only in the stock of your employer, which is something that I almost did because I fell under the impression that because I worked there and because it was comfortable and familiar, it was a good investment. Number 3 is investing only in one sector. Basically, this leads to not being diversified enough. So let's take a look at this right here. This is the global equity market. 49% is made up by U.S. stocks and 51% is non-U.S. stocks. So someone who invests 100% of their money in U.S. stocks is investing in 49% of the market, giving them 51% of the total global market that they are not exposed to. The solution to this is simply just to diversify. So if you're investing in U.S. stocks, consider stocks of non-U.S. countries as well. If you're somebody who is solely invested in the stock of your employer, consider diversifying. Or if you're only investing in tech stocks because you work for a tech company or that's the sector you're familiar with, you should be more diversified. So that is stock market sin number 6. And number 7 is loss aversion. This is basically what happened after the stock market crash of 2008. I saw a real-life example of this over the weekend. I was at the lake for 4th of July. Oh, just so you guys know, it's like 9:45 p.m. on 4th of July, and I'm in my room making this video for you guys. So I think that deserves a like, especially if you've watched the video this far. So it's 4th of July. Drop me a like for being crazy and talking to you guys in my room at 10 o'clock on 4th of July. Anyways, for the weekend, I was there hanging out, and I like being alone a lot of the time. There was a lot of people around, so I kind of snuck off and I was reading The Intelligent Investor. While I was reading, some family member came and found me. This is my girlfriend's family, and he was like, oh, what are you reading? And I was like, oh, I'm reading The Intelligent Investor. And he immediately looks at me, he goes, oh, don't do that, man. Investing is a losing game. He said those exact words, investing is a losing game. And I didn't say anything because I don't start arguments like that with people, especially because it's the family of my girlfriend. So just a piece of advice there, learn when to hold your tongue. But anyways, I guarantee you, it's a very high probability, in my opinion, that he got burned in the 2008 to 2009 stock market crash, and as a result has a sour taste in his mouth for stocks and investing, which as a result, many stayed out of the market and missed the entire 8-year market, the 8-year bull market that followed that bear market, that undid all the damage that was done if you look at the overall S&P 500 index. They missed 8 years of prosperity because they had a bad taste in their mouth and they were looking to be avoiding loss. They were doing loss aversion, okay? The truth is, we remember negative experiences more vividly than positive ones. It's how our minds are wired. And market corrections are regular occurrences, okay? Once you are understanding of market corrections and you're not afraid of them, you're not going to have that loss aversion that's triggered, okay? Let's go back to the teachings of good old WB here, Warren Buffett. He recommends that we need to be greedy when others are fearful. So in fact, bear markets are one of the best buying opportunities that you will ever see as an investor. So as a result of that post-2008-2009 crash, many people stayed out of the market and they missed the whole bull market that followed that bear market. They were trying to avoid loss, and as a result, they put their money in savings and checking accounts, earning a fraction of a percent of interest that was not keeping up with inflation, and as a result, they lost money. Even though they thought they were saving it, they lost money. Basically, guys, small corrections that happen trigger this loss aversion in our mind, all right? As a result, we see an overreaction. So the solution to this is be self-aware. The solution to all of this is be self-aware. Be self-aware that you are likely to have these 7 things hardwired in your brain because this is how humans are. Once you're aware that you're doing these things, you can better prepare for them and better understand when you're making emotional decisions. So you need to be self-aware. You need to educate yourself about corrections and bear markets. This is why I recommend picking up Unshakable by Tony Robbins. As much as I would love to say I pulled all this information together, I did not. This is right out of Unshakable by Tony Robbins. I highly recommend you guys check that book out. Whenever anyone asks me about investing books, number 1 is The Intelligent Investor. Number 2 on my list is now Unshakable, as I just finished that audiobook. So if you guys want to buy those books, the links are in the description. I would really appreciate it if you guys would use those links. They are Amazon affiliate links, and I get a small commission, which helps me stay alive in my room and have food and be able to bring these videos to you guys. So I would really appreciate it, especially if you guys watch the video this far. If you do plan on buying those books, please make sure to use the links in the description. But anyways, guys, these are the 7 deadly investing sins. I want to ask you a question. I want you to be honest with me. Drop me a comment below. What investing sin have you done in the past that you will not do going forward? As I said, I did a lot of these. I've had problems with doing many of these things because we're hardwired to do these things. But my hope is that by identifying them, you guys can now figure out how to not do these things and understand the solution to these things that we're hardwired to do. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate those of you who stuck around for the whole video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like. If you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing to be notified of any future uploads. And as always, I thank you guys for watching this video.